is Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance, joined by Mike Gardner today. He is a Riverside City Councilman. He's announced his intention to run for the Board of Supervisors in Riverside County. I'd like to speak with you, sir, about an issue that faces cities and counties, and that is the legalization of marijuana. Not medical marijuana, recreational marijuana.
So now it's all legal.
It's all legal. I mean, who would have thunk when in, 2010, the state voted 46-53 against legalization, and then 6 years later passed 57-43.
Yes.
What do you think? Why'd that happen? What do you think happened?
I think there is some shift in the general population's thinking about marijuana and its recreational use. There are other states that went before California on this and approved it as a recreational substance.
And let us consider Riverside County, not the bluest of counties, not the reddest, but not the bluest. It voted in favor of legalization.
It did.
I mean, San Bernardino County voted in favor of legalization. Every SoCal county voted in favor of legalization except Imperial and Kern.
Right.
So, I mean, this was pretty much a romp.
I think the campaign for it was well run in terms of arguing, realistically, people are using it anyway.
Right.
Why don't you get some tax money from it?
So this arguably puts Riverside in a pickle. The reason I say that is Riverside was the city that when medical marijuana was legalized, after a few years, Riverside said, we as a matter of land use are not going to grant any medical marijuana dispensaries. Well, as a matter of law, you won. It went to the California Supreme Court on a 7-0 decision. They said, yes, Riverside, as a matter of land use, can say no medical marijuana dispensaries. So you've set the precedent. Arguably, under that decision, I think you could say, well, as a matter of land use, we're not going to allow recreational marijuana facilities. I don't know if it's different, but...
Yeah, from a legal perspective, the city could do that.
Right.
What the measure provides is that everyone may grow up to 6 plants for their own personal use, and the whole dispensary sales, commercial production will be regulated at the state level. Those regulations won't come out until next calendar year at the earliest.
Right.
But a local jurisdiction, city, county, may bar production or sales if they wish to. Riverside has had some preliminary discussions. We got a very detailed briefing from a knowledgeable consultant just within the last month or so. We've not had any discussion about, okay, now that we have all this information, where do we want to go?
See, here's the interesting element of Riverside. About 300,000 people, but pretty spread out. At the same time, decent-sized cities right next door. Corona, Hoopa Valley, East Vale, you're not an island. And so, I mean, if those cities start adopting regulations allowing recreational marijuana facilities, I mean, that could cause some challenges because then people are driving into whatever other city, Paris, which is not that far.
Right.
Maybe they're using there, they're driving back.
Or they're using as they drive.
Right. And I mean, is that legal? I don't even know.
I don't believe it is legal to do so, however.
Yeah, we don't know. There's no like blood THC level test.
Exactly. The test is presence absence.
Right.
And it stays in your system as a positive test for something like 10 days or 2 weeks after use. Clearly you're not under the influence at that point.
So what's the thinking? Well, let me ask you this. What is the thinking of one Riverside City Council member named Mike Gardner?
I think we should give very serious consideration to allowing a certain number of dispensaries, sales points, for the reason that you just laid out. People are going to acquire it legally in some surrounding city.
Right.
They'll bring it back to Riverside, and to the extent that there are negative impacts from use of marijuana and being out in the community, we will have those, regardless of whether we allow the sale in the city. The use will occur in the city. So we may as well collect some tax money that will help us pay for the services that are necessary to deal with that.
So let's talk about taxing, though, because that presents another challenge. Under Prop 64, we have the following taxes. We have a 15% excise tax, that's state. Then the state provides a cultivation tax on the flowers and leaves. Then the state provides for a sales tax. So there's 3 levels of taxes there before we even get to the city and county.
Yes.
And you're allowed to impose a tax. So are we at risk of taxing this so much that all of a sudden black market's more
I think that's clearly a risk. From the perspective of a consumer, I would think that a goodly number of people would prefer to buy from a regulated facility than on the black market, in hopes that you're getting a better quality control product.
Right.
And you probably would pay a little more for that. But at some point, it's no longer worth it. The other issue that is related to that is if neighboring jurisdictions have different tax rates.
Right.
At some point, it's worth it to a consumer to drive to the next city and save 5%.
And in November, there were 39 county and city measures that passed their own taxes and fees in anticipation of the passage of Prop 64. 37 of them passed, including in San Bernardino, which is up the road.
Right.
Not far.
Not at all.
And so that begs the question. I can't remember what their tax was, but do the cities then start to look at the other jurisdictions and try to create some downward pressure?
I think there is some value in being later in the string of cities to adopt a tax, because then you do know what your neighbors have done and you can strategically pick your tax level. Or if you don't want to allow sales in the city, then you can deal with that.
I want to shift gears, if we may, and talk about the homeless situation, which is a crisis throughout the state. In Riverside, not as severe, but it's a challenge. Measure Z passed recently.
Yes.
That was a city sales tax.
Yes.
1 cent, good number. That's going to bring in some real revenue.
About $50 million a year is the projection.
And part of the policy behind that was to raise revenue for homeless reduction. So a city can build structures. They don't really provide services.
Right.
So if you start building structures, then what? You could be on the Board of Supervisors in a year and a half. Do you then try to provide the services for the Riverside City structures that are being built by Measure Z?
I think realistically, Riverside County has some significant financial struggles to go through at this point.
Yes.
Now. So I think it's going to be difficult for them to spend a lot of extra money on homeless services.
But then why should Riverside City build?
Well, I think the operation is not by government, but by a good nonprofit.
Faith institutions?
Most of them are, not all.
Right.
We are contracted with one now to operate the city's shelter and some of our other homeless programs. There is another good one, and there are many. I'm not singling out any as the best, but there is one called Mercy House that operates in Orange County and a little bit in the Inland Empire. Their facilities are amazing. You would never know what they are to drive by them.
Avoid the NIMBY issue.
It looks like the neighborhood, and it fits in very well. And if you talk to neighbors, the people who are living in those facilities are managed well, and they are not an impact to the neighborhood.
Right.
There's obviously a concern, but I think Riverside may go that route.
Okay, we'll have you back for sure. Continue these important conversations, and I'm sure there are many more to come. His name is Mike Gardner. He is a councilman in the city of Riverside, candidate for Board of Supervisors in Riverside County. We are in Riverside County today on Local Edition.